One of the victims of Flight 17 was Sister Philomena Tiernan. She's a 77-year-old teacher and Roman Catholic nun who dedicated her life to inspiring her students. One of those students was Lucy Thackeray. Lucy is now a reporter for the Mail Online, and she joins us now. Lucy, thanks so much for being here. We understand that you just got out of a memorial service for Sister Philomena. Tell us what that was like.
I did. It was really moving. There were lots of people there that were all affected by her life, and people of all kinds of generations. That just showed that she had been a member of the community for so long, and it had had a huge impact on so many people's lives.
Lucy, how did you get the news of the crash, and how did you
It was
hear
really important because people came together, and that's what Phil was all about. She was about bringing people together and about nurturing people and looking after people, and that's what she gave. And it's been amazing to see this outpouring of love for her. It's incredibly important that this is about the life she had and what she gave to people, rather than the horrible circumstances in which she left the world.
And let's talk about that. You call her your mentor. So what did she teach you?
She would speak on Monday mornings to the boarders, and she would reflect on what was happening in the world, and she gave us a real power to be able to talk about what was happening, but as well how we could make changes in our own lives and what impact that would have. And so Phil was a really quietly spoken, gentle woman, but in taking the time with people, she'd always stop and speak, and she connected and she cared, and she had an ability to really understand every single person and the gifts that they had, which is so rare, and people rush around these days and they don't stop. And it's in that way that we can see now that people are cherishing her, and people are changed, and their whole lives have been changed, because as an educator she had that power to quietly, not in a big way, not in a loud way, but to make an impact. And so she would talk about these big issues. She was an incredibly intelligent woman, and would tell us how we actually in our lives, as tragic as it was, could treat each other nicely and could reflect and be quiet and find peace within ourselves. And